Hi, I'm Joe Winchell. You may remember me from such podcasts as Millennial Stoner or Fairfax with Fairfax. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, shouldn't there be a new episode of the awesome podcast Millennial Stoner dropping right now? And you're absolutely right, there should be. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond our control, I cannot drop the episode. I recorded an amazing episode with my friend Leanne Gordon, talking about her modeling career that she had, and it basically got corrupted. The file was unusable. Me and my producer Chris did everything we could up until the 0 hour to try to get it out there, to get it fixed, and we just can't. So I'm going to try to scramble some stuff this week, but for right now, we put together a best of. To kind of soothe you guys over. There's some stuff with Bridget in there. There's some stuff with my guest Andy. We got some Billy Geyer stories in there, so I hope you guys enjoy that. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you guys. There will be a new episode out next week, I swear. I'm going to re-record with Leanne, so that episode, eventually we'll get that episode out. So just stick with me, guys. I appreciate it. Sorry for the inconvenience. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Enjoy the best of video. I'm Joe Winchell. I am the Millennial Stoner. Bye. Documentaries about the 80s comedy boom, which I think we're going through now in like a different level.
You think so?
I do. I think everybody wants to, because if somebody had one funny thing back then, like you ever just go and like look at like go on like YouTube and just like look at old like comedy store sets from like the 80s when they would do like these showcases that were hosted by like fucking Bay Arthur and shit.
Right.
Or like I think Bruce Willis hosted one back in the 80s. But it's like you don't see half these guys anymore because they, you look at it and you're like, "Oh, it's part of," and there's the 80s like way of doing stand up was so like oddly specific, and it was like much more drawn out than it is now. Mm-hmm. Like you couldn't, like, people's attention spans are so short. That's why I think it has to be joke punchline instead of.
Yeah, that's why I keep my jokes so short.
It's true, and I
feel
personally,
like people's attention span is so
you watch
short.
like George Carlin or something shit like that. That's like really more. Not I want to say long-winded, but it's more. There's a steps to it or something. Actually, DC Benny's a good example. He tells like stories. Mm-hmm. Any Long Island comedian. DC Benny tells like setup and everything, and sometimes it's not that DC Benny's hilarious, but I think sometimes the crowd doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Because they're expecting it to be rapid fire. Mm-hmm. And then I don't think that sticks because if you watch some of the good specials, like there's a lot of specials, but good specials on Amazon and Netflix. Mm-hmm. Good comedians, it's both. It's joke, and then they'll let something draw out for a little bit.
I feel like more people want stories. That's what they always tell me. You need to tell more stories.
I feel like that's what everybody.
But I'm like, I don't want to tell long-winded stories.
You do kind of. You have this story.
Jokes.
You have this story about.
I do have, a couple.
You've been tweaking that joke about you stealing the lawn ornaments.
Yes, get into that. I used to be a heroin addict.
Yeah,
and what I would like to do is I would do heroin with my buddies. We'd drive around Holbrook and we'd steal Christmas decorations, and then I'd decorate my truck with them.
Did you ever Did you ever plug it in to be like? Because I picture like the car wrapped in.
There was lights that were battery.
Were the lights on?
There was battery-operated lights that a lot of people were putting on their bushes that year. That I took those. There was a Santa Claus that I had bungee corded on the back of the truck, and he had a giant list, and I wrote "suck it" on the list. We had stole a giant wooden manger. And put that in the back of the truck, and my parents were like, "What is going on with our son? His truck is full of Christmas decorations."
What kind of truck did you have?
It was an '88 Chevy Silverado.
Oh yes, what color was it? Tell me beige.
It was blue.
Oh, so it's a little festive.
Yeah, short bed.
You're driving around like a low-rent Santa Claus. Like, all you need is a fucking...
I loved that truck.
Oh, my God. Man. That's a Christmas special waiting to happen.
And I kind of, I felt like the Grinch a little bit. I guess that's what the heroin will do to you. It will turn you into the Grinch.
So you would be high on heroin and you're like, I need
trying
ornaments.
To steal Christmas from Holbrook. And then I was working at this
cartoon of your little tiptoed by.
I was working at
You're
this
a mean
deli.
one, Mr. Geyer. Your veins are full of smack.
I worked at this deli in Holbrook where I was stealing all the Christmas decorations from, and people were coming in all the time, like, "Who the fuck took our snowman? His truck? Who drives that truck out front?"
Were you like, I don't know, sir? Like,
But after a while, like the one guy knew it was me.
he came in and he was like fucking. He was like Hulk Hogan, like you.
He knocked over all the pickle jars that were on top of the deli counter, and I literally had to fight this guy off with a hard salami. Literally, just like shoving in his, "Get away from me!"
You're just trying to keep him at bay, like.
And my managers at the deli were like, "What the fuck's up with this guy? He's always nodding off. He's doing heroin in the bathroom." I'm like,
what's up with this guy?
Yeah.
Maybe because he's doing heroin in the bathroom. Like,
his truck is full of Christmas decorations.
that's like the fucking most amazing. That's like such a Long Island story. Like that's such a fucking.
It's so Suffolk.
You know, like I remember when I went to California. It is very Suffolk. I remember when I went to California. I went out to do some acting, and I was talking to my California friends, and just like the way I talked and the stories I would tell them, it wasn't like I shocked them. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, we don't do that out here. That's janky, or whatever the fuck they say. You know, like,
Right.
Like if I introduced you to any of my California friends, they'd be like, "What the fuck, dude?" Like,
Yeah, they think I'm a maniac. I
yeah,
mean,
they thought I was a maniac just because I would
I
tell
was
them.
young and dumb and full of cum, you know,
I'm trying to think if I mean.
and heroin.
And heroin and cum. Couldn't get the cum out because of the heroin. That was a whole other thing. But no, we used to. I don't know. I never did. Because I never did heroin. We drank a lot. That was our thing when we were kids. We drank. Like, we would get bikes. We used to do that thing where you'd go and raid the liquor cabinet, except you were like, I just put all this liquor together and get really fucked up, right? So you have this
mix
weird,
multiple liquors?
Yeah, you have this weird, like Poland Springs bottle of, like, weird brown, but for some reason it's got, like, shades of other colors in it because you mixed, like, Grand Marnier and vodka.
The worst Long Island iced tea ever.
Scotch, and you're like, yeah, this is taking a party. I got liquor. You don't have liquor. There's a bucket of yuck.
A bucket of yuck.
That's what we did. And somebody would inevitably drink the whole bottle, and then you'd have to like fucking cart it. Like you'd have to like either leave him in the leaves in front of his house, which happened a lot.
Yeah, lost a good
We didn't want to knock on
friends
the door
that
and
way.
get in trouble. And or we'd have to fucking cart his ass. So that happened to me once. I remember I got the first real party I ever got shithoused at. I drank like most of the bottle of vodka. And I don't mean that in a cool way. I was trying to be cool, though. That's what I was going for. I'm like, I'm going to drink a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
I'm like a fucking freshman out of fucking
What kind
high
of
school.
vodka?
It was Stoli. I remember exactly.
Stoli.
Yeah, and I
Oh my
smoked. It was one of the first times I really smoked weed.
We used to drink Georgie.
$8 a gallon.
Hell yeah, bro.
Yeah, I drank like fucking more of the. I remember falling asleep on the beach, like near the water, and I woke up and I'm like, I gotta fuck out of here. And I already told everybody that I was like, I had to be home at a certain time, and I told my friends, I'm like, fuck that, I'll go home when I want. I'm having a great time. I was like, in my head, I'm like, this is the best ever. And then like I got home, and I remember getting dropped off, and I looked out the wrong side of the car. And I was like, this isn't my house. And they're like, other side. And I'm like, oh, this is my house. And then I got out. And it was like 1:30 in the morning. It wasn't like late, but it was late.
This is not my
house.
This is not my beautiful wife.
My mom's up waiting for me, like on the couch.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm slick. I know what I'll do. I'm just going to tell her I'm tired. I'm going to go upstairs because it's not that late. I know what time. I'm hammered. And I go, hey, I'm covered in sand, by the way, because I fell asleep on the beach. So I just come in like shaking off, like, hey, nothing's wrong. Just like cockeyed and just reeking of fucking drunken Russian vodka. And they're just like, I just try to bypass her and go up the stairs because like when you walk in my house, there's like the living room immediately to the right, and then to the left is the stairs. I go up to my room. So I was just like, I'll just bypass, and she'll be like asleep, and I'm like, oh hi mom, I'm really tired. I gotta go upstairs, and she goes, stop, and I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
And she goes, you're drunk, and I'm like, yeah. And she goes, you gotta go to bed. I'm like, well, why did you stop me if I was going to do that anyway?
Yeah.
And I remember saying that. She got pissed. And then she grounded me for like 2 months.
Dude, that is the worst when you're young and trying
like
to hide
16.
it being drunk coming
When she
home.
made me go to work with my dad the next day. My dad had sympathy for me. God bless him. Bruce Winchell, you're a saint. My mom was all pissed. My dad was like, that happens. I used to sleep under the fucking tractors at work because I'd be out all night drinking.
Dads are usually cooler with that kind of thing.
Sometimes I've seen it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen like really cool moms. I've also seen parents that are like maybe too cool with it. I don't know if you ever went over to that kid's house.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
Let's go over to Brendan's house. His parents let us do coke in front of them. Like, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so your act, you do this thing in your act that I fucking love. You have your own regular stand-up thing that you do, and I love that too. But you have this very unique act where you'll come dressed as Dracula.
Yes.
And I saw this for the first time a few years ago, and I remember seeing you walk in the parking lot, and I've seen the costume evolve a few times over the years at this point.
Yes, yeah.
But when I first saw you, it was in or near around Halloween or October or something like that.
Halloween. It was a Halloween show
and
for
you walked in the
Buchanan.
parking lot, but you had the cape on, so you walked very elegantly, and I'm like, what? I think I was standing next to Terry McNeely, and he fucking lost his shit.
Yes, he did. And I've known Terry, I've known Terry since 2001 is when I met Terry.
Yeah.
So I think he was reacting to that. Because now I'm like, if I see Terry's headlining, I don't do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, there's been like 3 times. Because it was the 420 show was the second time you saw. Because that's when you were standing outside.
Which was like that was when I was just starting out.
You and Fails were outside.
Yeah.
And I walked up and you guys were like,
what?
Hey. And then I
don't think I said anything right away because you had the fake.
No, I had a hat on. And you and Fails were like, hey, what's going on? And I just like opened my jacket and you could see like all the fucking Dracula stuff. And the two of you like, no, Fails is going, shut the fuck up.
Oh, he loves that
shut
shit.
Shut the fuck up.
Mike Fails loves that. I got to get him on the show. He fucking loves that shit. But even I was just like, because I'm just so excited by the prospect of him. Like, even if this sucks ass,
right?
He's gonna go up there dressed as Dracula, and I'm so happy that he's doing that.
It's a moment that the people we get to all share with each other.
Yeah,
to be like, to just like have reality be like kind of suspended.
Yeah,
or warped, not really suspended, warped
with going to see a comedy show.
Right.
I mean, I've always sort of approached it with that. I've never. Like, not that I have problems with anybody who like uses their comedy to like, for a message or something like that. But I'm not like mad that stuff exists. I just I'm like, I look at it as there's an escapism element to it. Like laughter is people need to laugh.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? This sounds so Mr. Rogers-y right now, but that's how I do it. It's escapism for me. That's how I view it.
Okay,
I think,
Joseph.
I think
you
that's.
You can do that. It's all right.
I'm working on a joke about Mr. Rogers right now.
You can do what you need to do, Joseph.
So aren't you so happy that he was just Mr. Rogers? Because he just looks like the kind of guy that would end up in one of those Netflix shows. Like, oh yeah, he liked to take his children to the land of make believe this Sunday, premiering on Netflix. Welcome to his neighborhood.
I made all my puppets myself.
Oh, we don't go outside the realm of imagination.
Go
in this
ahead
house.
Right now, if you're listening to this as a computer or have your phone and you can Google it. Google Mr. Rogers Halloween outfit.
Oh yeah.
And it's a slutty fucking Mr. Rogers.
They had to ruin it because he was like they tried to find. Remember that rumor that we want to talk about conspiracy theories. Remember the rumor that the reason why he wore the long because he had sleeve tattoos. Yeah. So he had like 71 confirmed kills in Vietnam.
So as a Gen Xer, and particularly my place in Generation X, I have insight into certain things that happened because Mr. Rogers, I was born in the 70s and Mr. Rogers
when he started, right?
Started in the 70s. Or it was the late 60s, but it was the 70s where
it took off.
Right, is where it took off, and it was everywhere.
Ran well into when I was a kid.
So my brother and I asked my mom one time, as we were adults, and we said, hey, what were the rumors back then about Mr. Rogers? And she rattled off like a bunch of them.
Anything weird?
No, just all the stuff.
Secret porn star?
Heard. Well, stuff like that, like sexual deviancy.
That's always what it is, right? It's always like because everybody's like, there is something to be said, and I've believed this for a while about like if somebody's that perfect, something's got to be wrong.
Oh, right.
It's like those people that it's almost like someone that really rallies against gay marriage. I'm like, you're probably so secretly gay, like you probably are like you're probably the head of the parade, and like because you have so much weird, like you're going so hard against this one thing.
But you see, again, that's like, and our brain, we've now seen it enough that our brains are like, yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, but he broke the mold, man.
But yeah,
What was some of the rumors you heard?
well, we were like, wow, like what the fuck? And she's like, yeah, no, we would hang out, we'd bring you guys to playground, and you start talking to other parents, and they're like, you're like, hey, so, and back then there was no fucking channel.
No, there's no
dedicated
internet
to children.
Yeah,
It was, you that one program. That one day on that one channel, you had to be there.
yeah.
Nobody even had a VCR at this point. And it was 80 years ago.
For those listening that don't know, VCR was an old device that we used to watch movies on.
My older daughter likes to, whenever I'm talking
The
about
really
something.
snot-nosed one?
No.
The one that you always talk about that gives you shit?
No, that's Daphne. That's the little one.
Daphne's the one that's always like...
Daphne is like every woman I know's spirit animal.
What the fuck does that mean?
No, because they all love her. They're all like, because
She's the funny one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it
the
is.
crazy shit she comes up with is just like, you're like, dude,
Yeah.
no, that's not true at all. Like she tried to, I used to
she's
say,
trying to fool you on stuff?
I wish, no, she's trying to explain the world around her.
How old is she again?
Dad,
Oh,
now
yeah, that's
she's
right.
8.
She got the Vinnie Barbarino
Yeah.
voice. You talk about that in your act.
Dad, you know why probably the pillowcase is on that pillow? Like, no, stop, because whatever it is, it's wrong.
You just
Whatever
know
you're
it's a
about
child.
to say,
yeah.
right? Whatever you're about to say is completely wrong.
That's why it's so hard when a child says something and you're like, it's just not. You're not right. Like,
Yeah.
Louis C.K. did a joke about that where he was just like, no, it's called pig Newtons. You just don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
Yes.
Oh God, I can't tell you how many of those. But my older daughter will go. As soon as I'm like, well, when I was a kid, she'll be like, it was 80 years ago.
She does that?
Yeah.
That's fucking hilarious.
From Titanic.
That she mocks you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's so funny.
Yeah.
You're just that's the bit to do now.
She's also the one that pulled a Polish grenade on me once.
What was the Polish grenade?
Polish grenade is when you like get somebody to come in close to you.
Yeah.
And you cup your fart into their face.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. She was like, Dad, you going to comedy? I was just going to a mic. I'm like, yeah. So can I hug you? Oh, of course. And I went over there and I hug her, and she just like kind of held on to me with her left arm, and all of a sudden her hand was in my face with the fucking fart on my.
Yeah.
And it's funny because
how old was she when she did this? Like 8?
She was probably about 7 or 8 when she did that.
I'm never having kids.
But I was like so proud of her. Like I'm never upset at like the things that they do. I'm always like, you got caught. That's the fucking problem.
Yeah. I'm a good dad.
Right. Just saying, you wouldn't be dealing with this had you not been caught.
So I want to go back to a minute something you said before about because you had like a really good set for a while, and you had just started doing new stuff, right?
Yeah.
So what's that like when you write now? Like
Yeah.
now when you write, what's that like? What do you draw from? Where's all your where's your stupid ideas come from?
A lot of my, I mean,
You can just be like, I like to sit and watch Netflix.
No,
and I
honestly,
think Kim Kardashian's ass is fat.
If something like happens to me that I'm like, oh, that's weird, or like
Okay.
I'll write it down like in my phone,
You
or
need a
even
phone. It's tough for me
oh
to
my
do it.
God,
I have to physically. I'm such a fucking old
yeah.
shit.
I will physically write down a joke, but
Yeah.
like if I'm in the moment of like, I'll be telling a story to one of my friends,
Okay.
and they're really laughing, and I'm like, oh, this is good.
That's something that I always like. I'll run into that, and I'm like, what do? I can't stop telling the story right now
Right.
because I have ADD. So I get excited. I'm like, remember this, and I'm
Yes, me too. I'm like,
nah,
say it
finish the story.
exactly like this. So I'll write that down, and then I'll try and turn it into
Yeah.
something. Like what the new stuff I have right now is I have some jokes currently in my set about my mom. So I kind of have some stuff about like my childhood with her that I'm working on.
We're gonna get to that
Yeah.
soon. We're coming up on the half hour
Yes.
mark. The last half hour is dedicated to Rosie and
Of
only
course,
Rosie.
Good. But I'm trying to kind of build out on jokes that I have,
That's
because
cool.
I mean I still have, I would say a real solid like 10 minutes.
You do.
And
I've seen you do 10.
So now I want to kind of build on some of that. So because I'm not at the point where I can be like, all right, let me scrap that 10 minutes, start fresh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I could, but
Wouldn't
you
it be
know.
great to have that confidence?
yes, it really
Wouldn't
would.
that be great?
But no, not me. I'm like, let me have.
like, to know you. Like I've been doing comedy for almost 5 years at this point.
Yeah.
I know I'm not funny. Like
You are funny. You are funny.
No, I'm not grabbing for anything. Like I just like there's like, I know I have been funny. This sounds so
Yeah.
Code of Samurai and everything, but it's consistency. It's just doing it consistently.
Yeah. Well, and it's
that's all
also,
it is.
to me, it's like if doing a new joke feels like taking such
so
a risk.
fucking scary is what
Yeah.
that translates to.
Right. So I want to pack it around things that I know work.
Yeah.
So that if that one new thing really bombs or something,
You can just reel
okay, I
back
can
on
go
this
back-
joke.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that's a thing that I need to just be more confident about, because it is one of those things when you're
Yeah.
writing where it's like, oh, this is not
Yeah,
funny.
you write
like,
it out and you're like,
you're like, this sucks. Like,
I rarely laugh at my own stuff as
Yeah.
I'm writing it, which
Never.
sometimes concerns me because like I made myself laugh writing this and I'm like,
yes.
am I not writing enough? Do I actually suck?
Yeah. Or
You
it's
know,
like, was this 10 minutes? Is this it? Was that
Yeah.
all I was capable of kind of thing?
This is like the stupid artist part of me that's like, I just want to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And I like performing for people. It'd be nice if I could get paid too as well
Sure.
for it. But I understand that that's a battle.
Yeah. It's the perk.
But I have been paid to do this before, so that's good.
Yes. It's always nice.
Few and far between, but
Yep. Not every time, by
We're
all
getting
means.
there.
Yep. Hopefully one day.
Yeah, but I think there's you gotta love it. Do you love it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Definitely,
what it is.
man.
Because that's what it is. I always have those conversations with comedians. That's like bad set last night, or fuck
Yeah.
this person, or blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Are you gonna quit?" It's like, "No, I'm not gonna quit.
No, I'm gonna do this again tomorrow.
Fucking do this again tomorrow. I fucking hate myself though."
Yeah.
Like, but it's the perfect thing to do because like I talk about it in my set. I'm sure you see it. I have depression, anxiety, and ADHD.
Mhm.
And like, I don't know if anybody's ever figured this out in the world of acting, but I think the reason that so many actors die young is because it's a cesspool of just that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And a lot of it is glamorized, like that sort of, oh, this person was so ill, but they were brilliant. I'm like, I kind of wish they didn't blow their head off at
Right.
27.
100%.
You know what I mean?
You hope that was
You
better
know,
than that.
And but it's so tough because the gratification that you need as an actor, it's different than a
Mhm.
comedian.
Right.
Because it's almost like weirdly selfish because you're playing dress up in a way,
Mhm.
but like you worked on something for like 3 months
Yeah.
and then you're presenting it to the public and then you're like, isn't it good?
Right.
And sometimes it's not.
Yeah. No.
And sometimes the people in the show don't know it isn't. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it's a very subjective thing, and it's also quality. I think sometimes drops a lot in it
Yeah.
with like oversaturation of certain shows and everything like that. I'm sure I
Yeah.
can talk to your mom about this at an extent, but my point being is the validation that you get is different because we're in comedy. You're actively working on something and going to work on it like every night as well. Like you're
Yeah.
presenting it to the public every night,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also working on it. And in your rehearsals or whatever the hell anybody else wants to call it, we call it open mics and just kind of like doing stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's like that's the crazy thing about it is that's almost like when people get mad that the show doesn't go well.
Yeah.
Like it's really crazy to me because I'm like, well, you didn't really tweak it along the way. You know what I mean? Like, why
Sure.
don't you walk off stage and be like, what was wrong with that scene?
Right. Like
It's-
if a joke isn't working every single time,
Yeah.
it's you. It's not
Yeah,
the crowd.
exactly. It's,
You know,
yeah.
people are like, oh, it's a tough crowd. It's like, no,
Yeah.
the joke is not working. Like I've had them like jokes where I really am like, I want this to work so bad and it just doesn't. And you have to like scrap something like that or rework it or something.
Yeah.
But that's like,
have you
kind
thrown
of,
out whole jokes in the past?
yeah.
I have
There
too.
there was one that I was really working on at an open mic and it's just doesn't work. It works as a story that I tell like in conversation.
That's
And
like
it
a bar
just doesn't-
story. Yeah,
yep, and it just
one-on-one with a
doesn't
human
translate.
being, it works.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm still figuring out about it. How that works to a crowd as opposed to one-on-one. I think
Yeah.
there's something I get it, but I don't get it.
Cause you know what? My energy is so different when I'm in a way than when I'm telling a story, like than when I'm on stage telling something. I think like when I tell a story that like gets me like worked up, like I'll be like louder and I'll be like a little more
You're a little
animated.
Yeah, because you have emotion going through
Right.
your body and you got all your endorphins running.
Yeah. And so then when I'm on stage to kind of make that translate, I would have to like change up my whole like kind of vibe on stage or like maybe inject a little more of that energy into it. So maybe
Yeah.
I would have to try it in a different way.
You should do
But-
cocaine right before you go up.
Yeah, I think
That's
I'm
what
going to do
you-
that. And the moral of the story.
You're going to do just a big fat caterpillar line
Yes.
and then just be like,
Yes, be absolutely
Bridget,
insane.
I didn't understand a fucking word you said, but the animation was great.
Fantastic.
Were they the reason did they convince you to dress up as Dracula? Or was it
No.
like, where did that come from?
That actually
I'm
comes.
sorry, I gotta go back around because I've always
Yeah.
wanted to ask you where the hell that came from.
So that was I was doing somebody's Halloween show. It was Evan Weiss's Halloween show.
Rest in
Down
peace.
at
No, I'm kidding.
Shakers.
I'm kidding.
I mean, really, he could go at any
no,
time.
Evan is alive and well.
Just- But yeah. So and he said, I really want you guys all.
That's
I
a
want
good
you
Evan.
to everybody like dress up, like be in a costume, like. Fuck. And I'm like, well, and then the way my brain is, the way my pattern works, is that I can't get up there dressed as somebody and not acknowledge it.
Yeah. Especially in comedy, like that's I always hate when you see somebody and they go up there with something. You're like, you can't not talk about that.
So my buddy Don Sill from Governors.
Yeah, I know Don Sells.
Don interviewed Brain.
I'm just killing time right now while Andy stares off into the corner.
Yeah, what was that? Yeah. Stanhope. Doug Stanhope.
Oh, love Doug Stanhope.
Yeah. So he's interviewing Doug Stanhope. He interviewed him.
In the Governors?
No, it was during the lockdown phase of the pandemic.
Oh, so it was like a Zoom interview.
It was a Zoom interview, but he got an interview with fucking Doug Stanhope, and he was fucking hilarious. But
was he hammered?
No. He was totally with it, and he was like, he goes, one time I did a Halloween show, and this fucking guy shows up in a gorilla outfit, the whole thing. And they sat him like right up front, and he's like, I went in the green room and I was like, nobody fucking mention it. Nobody even look at him. Nobody say shit about him.
Yeah,
like
he's asking for it.
Right. And
he's like, I'm going to go. Because that's, fuck that. I agree with Doug Stanhope. I know. It's got me really pissed off for a second.
Right.
If I went to a show and some dude showed up in a fucking, sorry, I hit the mic stand, Chris. So he just stared at me so devilish. I was doing so good.
I like how in the
so
beginning, before it was like, no, you keep hitting into it. Yeah, but I need it. And then whack.
Exactly. There's my spectrum. If I was doing a show and some fucker showed up in like a full like Darth Vader outfit and sat, but like the only person and like sat front row, I'd be like, I'm not talking to this guy because he's asking to be the star of the show at that point.
Right.
And he's asking to be the star of the show without doing anything.
Right.
Which really pisses me off. That's why I hate I hate hecklers for a different reason, not because they're interrupting my show, but because if you want to do this, then you can go to a mic, you can go do this.
Right.
It's really, I always tell people, I'm like, there are dozens of mics on Long Island.
Right.
Okay. Like anybody can be funny in a moment.
Yeah.
But to like continuously be funny.
Right. On purpose.
Yeah. On purpose.
And people
it's hard as fuck.
And people expecting you to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I have a constant discussion with Billy about consistency.
Yeah, I do too. I talk to Billy a lot about it.
That's the key at this point.
Well,
for like our level kind of.
I remember like going to shows, and I had gone to shows like going to Governors and everything, and like anytime I get a chance to ask if I see a comedian, I'll go up. If I'm like they're outside smoking, I'm like, fuck, I'm just gonna go ask them. I'm just, piece of advice. Why not?
Right.
Who the fuck they have to lose?
No, absolutely.
And every single one of them, and it really started with Mark Maron said this in a special, I think. And he just said, like, just got to keep doing it. Which is such a simple thing. You just got to keep doing it. Do it as much as you can.
Right.
And then the only piece of consistent advice I've ever gotten from like any comedian I've ever liked or like a working one that's on TV that's got any kind of weight to them was like, I'd go up and I was like, hey man, I just want to say I loved your show tonight, blah, 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 blah. Something really queefy. Then I'm like sweating. And I walk up I remember I walked up to Big Jay Okerson and I was like, hey, you want a joint? I'm like, and he was super sweet to me. Like he was like, I told me he was like and he is one of my favorites.
Right.
But like, they've all said, keep doing it.
Yeah.
They've all said, keep doing it. Like there's something to me that no other like sort of form of entertainment kind of has that constant piece of advice. Like even in acting, right? Acting's a lot like karate or like learning martial arts. Like you figure out what style works for you.
Acting has, listening is
that's it.
Yeah,
actually, you know what? I'm sorry.
That's the one.
Yo, if any of my theater friends listening are gonna hate me right now because you're absolutely right. That is the one piece of consistent advice I would give.
I just took too much acid, man. I'm just not. I'm not right anymore. And I've got over that. So
Okay.
I'm like, maybe I've just accepted myself more, or what the acid.
That's probably a lot of that. Yeah.
Because talking about, I was going to bring this up before. One of the first shows I did, I was an open micer.
I wanted to ask you more about this.
I was an open micer, and I would go down to the Roast Coffee and Tea Trading Company. It was
You
in
showed me a
Patchogue.
video of that when we were in Walton doing shows.
I started out there, and that's where I would do comedy, and eventually met Evan Weiss, and he booked me on shows. But that I would just go down there because I didn't know where else to go to do comedy, and So from doing that, I met this band. I don't think they're around anymore. Funk Nasty.
Nice name for a band.
They were actually pretty cool. And they were doing a show at the Long Island Ale House. They're like, dude, we love your comedy. You want to do like jokes in between the band setting up? It was like this whole day affair at the Long Island Ale House with all these bands. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And then I was with my buddy Pat, and we were fucking taking mushrooms and doing coke and acid all the time or whatever. And he's like, you should do acid at the show. And I'm like, all right, yeah. He's like, how many hits you want to do? And I was just like, I'll do 3. And he's like, all right, I'll buy it for you. And I'm like, all right. I didn't think he was going to. Then the day of the show, he's like, hey, I got those 3 hits of acid. And I'm like, all right, I guess I got to do it.
Wait, I love your mentality of being like, because you could just be like, you know what, man, I'm not really feeling that right now.
That would be the smart thing to do.
You're
but
like,
I got to be
well,
a showman.
Yeah. That was the first time you ever took acid?
No, it was probably like the 4th or 5th time.
But the most you ever took acid at once at that point?
The most, yes. That's the most I've ever done. You only need 1 hit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know, you crazy maniac.
That's like this. You just told me a story that you only could hear by you or on Behind the Music. I think Lemmy Kilmister has actually told a story about how he was like. He said something about how he was trying to make the dosage for acid last longer, and they said they couldn't do it, but we took triples anyway. It's like, what the fuck?
So I took all 3 in the parking lot before the show, and I'm watching this band. I'm feeling all right. I was drinking heavy too. I was drinking like whiskey and water or LITs.
You and your LITs.
Yeah, and it hit me like a ton of bricks right before I went
a
up.
fucking train hitting you. All of a sudden, you're
bro.
like, I'm high.
I've never tripped this hard in my
Were you
life.
sweating like that kind of tripping where you're like,
bonkers. And I remember I went up there, and I was still an open micer at this point. Still didn't have a solid 5 minutes.
Do you have video of this?
My buddy does on his phone.
God.
I
couldn't do that. I've performed on some drugs in the past. I'm always a little high, but
weed,
I don't think I could
booze.
ever do hallucinogenics.
It's I've done it only a couple of times. So I go up there, and I think I got like maybe like 1 joke out, maybe or something.
And then the snake came out of the audience.
I was just up there like, I'm on acid. I'm on acid. And I was getting laughs, just screaming how I was on acid.
Were you like doing your jokes like, actually, I was the janitor? I'm on acid.
I didn't even have jokes at this. Like, I was an open micer. Like, I didn't
so
have.
You were just talking about you being high?
Yeah, and I was just like yelling, screaming at people, like, I'm on acid. I'm on acid. And then my buddy yells out, like, read from your notebook. So I had my notebook up there. So I look at my notebook, and the words popped up into the sky, and were making new words in front of me. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm on acid. And the people knew that was what was going on, thought it was funny. Like the people in the bands and stuff, they're like, wow, this guy's really on acid. He's not lying.
That's amazing.
But I had to go up multiple times in between these bands setting
So
up.
how were you doing? Was it different every time? You're
It
like,
was different
hello,
every time.
snake people. How are you?
I remember screaming like I was on acid and screaming at the audience, and they were like looked frightened. And I was like, all right, this is my new brand of comedy. I'm the scary man.
Wait.
I'll just scare people.
I love that so much. I love how you're just like rolling with the punches.
Yeah.
You're high, as if this is how your life is forever now. All right, I guess this is just what I do now. I'm just the angry acid comedian.
Yeah.